It's my esteemed pleasure to formally announce that Mind's Eye's officially partnered with Hotness TV, a media platform for producers, videographers, and artists, ranging from music to fashion, movies, and passion. I invite you to listen closely because you'll be hearing from us soon.
You want the smoke? It's lit now!
Let's get it.
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is brightened.
I remember while randomly scrolling through social media in mid-January of 2022, I came across a post mentioning a new werewolf movie making the rounds at the film festival. It was Gothic, received rave reviews, and due out in February. I was intrigued, eagerly anticipating the trailer, and 2 weeks afterward, it dropped. Experience has taught me not to set my expectations too high. After all, even for an independent film, for the singular trailer to debut a mere 3 weeks prior to the movie's release would usually warrant caution. But as if the eerie gothic tone of this preview didn't have me hooked, the imagery and suggestion of other monsters prowling and preying on humans had me sold on this premise. Holy crap, is that a scarecrow? So, did this last-minute theater debut aim for the stars and settle for the full moon? Or is it left in the doghouse alongside other, less favorable strays? The Mind's Eye is where you'll find, and my name's Inkarnate to play your guide. Before we warn to beware the moon, a word from our sponsors. We'll see you soon. If you're already using Jabra headsets as your preferred audio tech provider, like I plan to very soon, then you know they provide a whole host of listening electronics ranging from workout earbuds, Bluetooth music headsets, and office hearing devices. If you're an HD snob like me, you probably buy Samsung for all your major electronics. Catch up on your favorite horror classics on one of their Ultra HD TVs. Watch one of Scream Factory's Blu-rays on their 4K players. Keep up with updates from 80s horror documentary In Search of Darkness on a high-end tablet. Subscribe to your favorite YouTuber through one of their Galaxy phones. I have so many Samsung devices, I've always thought they should be paying me. Well, now they can, and you can help. If you use the link in the description for either Samsung or Jabra purchases, it'll help the channel out tremendously. With the promotional considerations accounted for, it's on with the show. We open on the tail end of World War I in 1917, and the gripping sight of a trench warfare scene instantly left me feeling confused. Am I in the right theater?
And if it was, did he know about it? And if he didn't, who did? And where the hell was I?
I thought, let me ease back in my chair and wait for this movie to make sense or show me the title card to assure me I didn't just self-sabotage my own Friday night. The Jerrys think their party crashers could use a change of clothes and send a special delivery of mustard gas overhead, melting their uniforms. If that wasn't enough of a friendly greeting, the welcoming committee unveils a care package in the form of a machine gun. Within a triage ward, as relieved as one soldier is that the doctors are pulling shrapnel out of his body, he'll wish they put them back in once they see their bill. Speaking of relief, the surgeon, realizing there is something else lodged in his patient's leg, pulls out what's identified as a silver bullet, confirming that I was indeed watching the correct movie. Whew. That was a close one. I mean, what would have happened to this video if I was forced to review Wonder Woman, let alone watch that snooze fest? Can you imagine? Egg on my face, am I right? Our movie begins properly and flashes back to Downton Abbey. To right, let's toddle off to merry old London then. Bob's your uncle, Big Ben's o'clock, and we grab us a pint at the pub to have us a crack at watching Manchester United, you will. Wait, what? The movie's set in France.
Oh, blimey, skip to me, Lou.
En français.
You bloomin' plunker. But I didn't even get to do my Austin Powers joke yet. Ah, France. You may be asking if the land of L'Amour is the right setting for a horror movie, but I would hasten to remind you.
You know how unpredictable the French are. One minute they're kissing a woman's hand, the next they're chopping off her head.
Besides, history has shown France too have plenty of horror potential, especially when it comes to werewolf. Hey, beat it! Okay now, we're in the right movie, right setting. Back to the review. It made for a thought-provoking contrast that a scene of hunting rabbits by local landowners was followed up with the sight of a wagon carrying gypsy pilgrims on arrival. I thought to myself, if anything, those are the lambs of the slaughter. Sure enough, the landowners hold a conference to discuss the matter of these visitors on their property. What's to be done about these undesirables? They ride up into town in their caravans, providing amusement and leisurely diversion to the common hardworking man. Work of the devil, if you ask me. They'll read your fortune from the palm of your hand or crystal ball, deck of cards, magic 8-ball, something diabolical like that. They're a menace of punks, these lands, and they must be stopped. I have seen many a one-shot scene. No, not that. I mean the long take, where the camera continues filming without a cut. Far too often in recent offerings, it comes off as a gimmick, as if to force-feed the audience the impression of, ooh, the director is such an innovator with his camera work, how long can it last? But in this movie, it was keenly effective at displaying the brutality of a massacre. While one man is made a mockery of, even in death, getting propped up like a scarecrow to warn of further gypsy trespassing.
If I only had a brain.
A woman is treated to a dirt nap.
Buried alive. Rest in peace.
For this act of sacrilege, nightmares soon greet the children for the sins of their fathers.
You are all my children now.
That's pretty close, I gotta admit. Tell me if you've heard this one before. A pathologist walks into a bar. When he's approached by the town constable, the good doctor name-drops his experience with Gévaudan, and that mention alone brought a smile to my face and self-assurance to my mind. If you've never heard of the infamous werewolf trials or the urban legend of the Beast of Gévaudan, I don't know how those movies haven't been made, but check them out. But after my review. While the adults strategize, the children are at play. They return to the site of the scarecrow, and ironic that it's the bully of the group that finds himself compelled beyond his will. He digs into the gypsy grave and uncovers the jawbone relic that seizes control of him as he seizes one of his cohorts and sinks his teeth in. It seems that the past refuses to stay dead, as the woman buried alive, rising from her grave, makes for literally the stuff of nightmares and invokes her gypsy curse to take effect. As if that bad dream weren't bad enough, it is the waking nightmare of the girl that was envisioning this imagery that makes for a truly haunting sight. Journeying the desolate halls of her home with only candlelight to guide her makes for nail-biting tension, but it is the unexpected that she discovers that's truly harrowing. Let's just say, after the nightmare she's discovered the root of her evil. The pathologist pays a house call at the estate. Meanwhile, the bully child who was overtaken by the gypsy's curse into biting the other boy seems to have had his taste of hell and is now repentant to heaven. Sad then that no one will hear his prayers. Leaving the haven of the church, he is chased down by the very beast he helped create. He learns the truth behind the phrase, "There's no atheists in a foxhole," and, in desperation, reads from the pages he tore from a Bible before he himself is torn into.
You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers, and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass.
The pathologist arrives on the grisly scene to investigate what's left of the body. They hold a funeral for the boy, but you can tell the doctor is thinking that they'll need to dig more graves because this is just getting started.
Oh, except for the one on the end. That's already taken. Sorry.
After getting recounted that the boy that was slaughtered had himself bitten another child, the good doctor is given a tour of the estate of the missing boy's home. Noticing marks on the door, he orders all windows and doors to be barred. Troubled by these familiar calling cards, the pathologist can't even find rest in his sleep. The nightmares now come for him as well. The scarecrow of the gypsy not only pays him a visit, but he's brought along familiar faces from the doctor's past in suitably chilling fashion. This movie continued to impress. When he's deprived of sleep, focusing on his work brings him even less reprieve. He looks evil in the eye under his microscope, having placed the claw marks on the door under his lens. Whatever organic material was left by whatever tore into the wood seems to come alive when introduced to human blood to unnerving effect. Convening with his fellow cohorts, the pathologist not only reveals his dealings with the beast of Gévaudan, but also of the toll taken in pursuit of this fiend. Loss of men, loss of loved ones. Just then, this movie shifts gears to where all great werewolf films ought to pay a visit, the moors.
Stay on the road. Keep clear of the moors.
I'm not gonna spoil here what goes down. The tension, the terror, the crimson, the carnage. I'll just say that when you have a monster depicted in such a way that even surviving an attack is a fate worse than death, you've done your job well. Explaining further what had happened during his time in Gévaudan, the pathologist makes it known that it was the gypsies that contained that curse. That one detail drives the landowner's wife to spill the beans on her husband's dealings with their gypsies. How interesting that the more that we learn of our hero's past, the more he unravels the mystery of the landowner he's dealing with. Speaking of which, taking into account what he dealt with before with the beast, the fact that this guy opts to set traps alone to catch this monster shows the pathologist has got balls the size of Texas. And he even manages to snare one beast in one of his traps. As if that wasn't pulse-pounding enough, the pathologist brings his catch of the day back to the manor of the landlord, and again, I don't want to spoil anything, but the sheer body horror on display when he gets to work on his day job and cuts The Thing right open is right out of John Carpenter's The Thing. Every time he harkens back on his past, the pathologist's tales grow ever more startling, this time mentioning how the villagers of Gévaudan were experiencing shared dreams.
Now that's a bitch!
On the subject of bad dreams, when the good doctor asks the lady of the house about the body in the field he journeys to in his nightmares, clearly one disturbing sight begets another when she shows the pathologist the picture of the gypsy slaughter, commemorated by her husband and company, posing with their rifles over their triumph. The order is given to barricade the villagers at the church, because why not pack all the meat into one place, while the good doctor sends word to the army to mobilize towards the village. Clearly, this guy ain't screwing around if he's calling in the cavalry. Whenever a blacksmith is summoned in a werewolf movie, you know what job he's called upon to craft. Horseshoes to ride the nearest stallion and get the hell out of Dodge. But for those either too brave enough to stay or too dumb to leave, set the table. We're about to place the silverware. While the maid worries herself with what's crawling in the grass, seriously, there's worse things to be worried about while doing laundry in a horror movie. She just makes a mess of the sheets, honestly. Good help is hard to find. An inspector, an autopsy, villagers in a church, maid attacked outside. I was getting some serious Sleepy Hollow vibes. The lord of the manor and pathologist argue when he reveals that he knows what the landowner did and how he brought this madness upon his own village and home. Afterward, wailing is heard from the wall vent. Seems that when the maid survived her attack, she brought the gypsy curse a little too close to home. The suspense when the characters are journeying the hallways are gripping stuff, but nothing compared to when the maid turned wolf grasps the Lord in her death clutch. Even surviving his encounter with the beast, the horror sets in of what its mark means. As if quietly journeying through the close quarters of the house wasn't worrying enough, the survivors making their way through the dead of night, in the woods, out in the open, on the monster's home turf was frightening. They managed to make their way to the church, and it's here where they make their stand. As primal and near unstoppable as the werewolf proves, it is tragic that once again the pathologist must make a sacrifice to slay the beast at great cost. Loss of men, loss of a loved one. Guys, I'm stunned. That another horror film this good came out so soon after November 2021's Antlers is something damn near unheard of. If this development isn't enough of an irregularity, referring to my closing thoughts on the aforementioned film's review, The Cursed is exactly what I wished for. If the theme of the holiday is feasting, if we have yet to see a werewolf movie about Thanksgiving, I'm damn proud that we at least got a Wendigo film for Halloween. This movie is like someone took the setting and minions of that crappy Resident Evil Village and made a great movie out of it, instead of a crappy game. I typically don't classify werewolf movies within body horror, just because generally the transformations aren't anything as brutal as the holy trinity of horror remakes. The Thing, The Fly, The Blob. But folks, not since Ginger Snaps has a licensed film delivered on that front of visceral contortion of the human anatomy. Usually in these setups, the gypsies play more as background characters, so it was interesting that here they were instigators of the affliction as an act of vengeance. It both reminded me of the OG Wolfman and made me wish that the 2010 remake delivered like this film did. A couple of things I wish we could have seen. First on the list, character development. As much as the movie does offer nuance and intrigue with its plot, I do wish it invested more in its personalities featured. They could have gotten more mileage out of the final church scene, have the werewolf find clever ways in or ways to draw out its prey. Speaking of the ending, I was hoping that once they circled back to World War I, the removal of the silver bullet would have reactivated the curse and we would have had werewolves running amok in the trenches.
Werewolf women of the SS.
It's always great to see scary movies do horror during the day, and this film pulls that off several times. The kickstart to the plot, where the one boy gets overcome by the curse and passes it onto a child, who in turn not only becomes the beast, but hunts the child who first turned him, was an inspired choice, and came full circle with its irony. As mentioned, I was definitely getting Ichabod Crane vibes from the pathologist, and speaking of disease, as such a fan of lycanthropy that I am, it was amazing to see the curse of the werewolf treated like an outbreak, the characters never knowing who was bitten, and the horror finding its way all the way home. While some sites are rightfully giving the cursed its due praise, others are free to squander their efforts, dismiss valid criticism, and pander to a lesser film that released the same day. I've been Inkarnate, and I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.